Stapleton. This is my assistant, Stephen Cook, and we're going to show you how to assemble your chair. Thank you for purchasing our Adirondack chair kit. It's made of solid white pine, 7/8 of an inch. Most of the holes have been pre-drilled for you. You'll notice that in your packaging comes all the hardware you're going to need to assemble your chair. We're going to assemble the base of our chairs. You're going to need your two side members here. You're going to notice on the side members there's lines drawn on the back. That is where this piece actually lines up to, so you can line that directly up on the back there. The lines are going to be there for you. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to use these clamps and a scrap of wood. You can use any scrap of wood, it doesn't really matter as long as it's flat. And I am going to clamp it here on my chair, so when I put this board on here, it'll be nice and flush. What we're do now is we have these stops up. I want to put a nice thin bead of glue on the edge here. I'm going to slide my board up against the side, and I'm going to line it up with that pencil mark in the back. And I want to make sure everything is nice and snug and tight, and Stephen is going to drive these screws home. Now these screws are nice screws. You don't need to drill a pilot hole for them in the other board. You're just going to want to make sure that when you tighten them down, you don't over drill them. So you just want them to just get snugged up there. Once they're snugged up, it'll be good to go. We're going to put our second screw in, and we're going to repeat the process on the second side. Now we're going to put on the front cross piece here. Again, has holes drilled. These holes are the exact same on both sides, so it doesn't matter. There's not an up or a down. So we're going to use our block again. We're going to put it up against here. When we do it, it's going to actually be flush here and flush on the top. It's going to be a little bit difficult to see, but when we do that, it's just going to be nice and flush. So one of the things you're going to have to do is when you put your glue on, you're going to have to put it on both spots at the same time, because once you put the screws on this side, you won't be able to remove your board to get your glue in over here. When you're doing this, you only want to focus on this joint over here. If you need to move it or squish it or something like that, it'll be fine. So just be concerned about this joint right here. So I'm going to put this in place, and Stephen's going to screw it home. Notice when we put this one on, this one's not perfectly lined up. That's perfectly fine. We'll be able to move it into place, so don't get too concerned about that. So I'm going to clamp this piece back on the side, flush it up on the top, and put the screws in. Okay, so now we're going to put our legs on. You can see our leg holes are pre-drilled, but these holes are not pre-drilled, so this is what you're going to need your 1/4 inch drill bit for. You're going to notice we have lines right here. These lines line up directly right here. What I like to do, and we've made hundreds of these chairs, is every time we mark our lines, your lines will be there, but we always mark them. We clamp our legs down, and we do that on both sides, and then we check to see if it sits flat to make sure the lines are in the right spot. I have these clamped down here. We're going to check to see if it sits flat right here, and it sits pretty darn nice. All these, our holes are pre-drilled. Our lines are lined up perfectly at the bottom here, and this line, just so you know, is at 11.5 inches, so you can check that if you'd like to. And something else to realize is that the countersinks should be on the inside of your legs. So now Stephen's going to drill these holes. I'm just going to hold them here just in case they want to wiggle or move, and we're going to drill all 3 of these holes. Holes are drilled. You can take your clamps off if you're using them. You're going to want to spread a decent amount of glue around the holes, and then use the included hardware and put it together. When you're using the hardware, you're going to want to realize that it goes together a certain way, and they're all pre-packaged, ready to go. But they go on, we put our carriage bolt in, and then it goes flat washer, lock washer, and nut. What I'm doing here now is he's tightening down our bolts, just so they're nice and snug down here. They should be almost flush at this tip, and there'll be a little ball sticking out the side. Glue should start squeezing out. You can wipe that off. Don't over tighten them. The glue will actually hold them in place when it cures. and we're going to repeat the process on the other side. Put on our rear seat slats. This is where you're going to have to do a little bit of measuring on your own. Is you're going to take your tape measure, you're going to mark at 1 inch on one side and mark that same 1 inch on the other side. Once that is in place, you're going to take your rear seat slat, you're going to line it up with the sides and exactly on your lines on both sides, and you're going to screw it in. No glue is needed on this joint. All right, now we're going to put the rest of our seat slats on. It should slide right in here perfectly. If it doesn't, if it's a little bit tight, you may need to sand it off a little bit, but it should be pretty darn close. The first one, the ones that we have right here are not pre-drilled. The ones that come with the kit are pre-drilled, so you can use screws if you would like to. The front one is a little bit different. It has 3 holes in it, and you'll be able to see those on the written instructions. Every other one has 1. The reason they're pre-drilled is that if you don't own an air nailer like we do, you can use screws to put it in place. So all we're going to do is we're going to have this front side hang off about 1/4 inch, and we're going to nail it in place. If you own a nail gun and you nail the front one in place, make sure you angle it a little bit. You can shoot it right into the legs. It's not going to bother anything. We're overhanging about 1/4 inch. They're all shot in place. We're going to be putting on our brackets. Our brackets pieces that hold our arm up in place. Putting the brackets, there's no real scientific way of doing it. You're going to take your tape measure. You're going to measure to the center right here, which is going to be 1 3/4 inch on both sides. Make the mark on the outside. We have our holes pre-drilled here already. You're going to line this up in the middle, and I found you can do it very easily. Just line them up, set it in place. You're going to want this to be as square as possible. If you want to measure or use a square or something like that to make sure these go perfectly straight down and they're not at some weird angle. You want it to be nice and flush in the top. You're going to put a bead of glue down here and put your screws in. Alright, now we're going to put these in and snug them down. Remember the glue, and remember to keep it nice and flush here. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. If at any time you're doing this on your own, or you can also clamp this bottom piece down here and it'll hold it nice and snug in place. But we've done several of these, so we're used to doing it this way, but you can use a clamp. Done, we're going to take this back piece off. This is why we didn't nail it down or use any glue. We need to remove that so when we put our back slats in, that we have plenty of room to get the drill in there. Once those are removed, we're going to put our arms in, and that's where we're going to use our fancy jig here. How the jig works is it sits nice and snug at the top right here, and it locks into place. And these extra boards here line up so your arm slides right there. So you're going to want to take some time, lock it in place, make sure it's nice and straight. It's got to be nice and straight, or else the back piece won't fit very well. It'll still work, but this is a crucial part of it. So we're going to put glue on here, and we're going to screw it in place. Make sure to put a nice amount of glue on here. Line this up, drop this down, and again, make sure it's nice and straight. It should line straight up with that back leg, so you should see a line straight down, and we're going to put our screws right in. Once 2 screws are in, you can let go of the jig. And we're going to repeat this same process on the other side. The jig works for both right and left arms. Time to put on our upper back piece. This has a slant on it. It should be tipping up just to hold the backrest in place. You notice you drop it on here. It may not line up perfect, but again, we can bend things into place. So we're going to take our clamp here, flush it up on the side and the back, and we're going to clamp it. And we're going to do the exact same thing over here. If you only have one clamp, you can do one at a time as long as one's flushed and then drill, but now we have them flushed. They're nice and smooth and we're ready to go. So just like our legs, we're going to take our drill and we're going to screw in. One thing you have to remember is that the only thing holding these arms in place are these 3 screws. So when you're drilling, you want to lift up a little bit on the back side here, so it's not putting a lot of pressure on here. So our holes are drilled. We put some glue around our holes here, and we're going to slide it in place and put our carriage bolts in. One thing that you can do if the carriage bolts don't stick down quite far enough, you can always take a hammer and tap them down into place. Or you can just squeeze them down. It'll work just fine either way. We use 2-inch carriage bolts, so they're just long enough to make everything work. And we'll tighten these down the same as we did with the legs. Back on, it's time to put our back slats on. This piece does come with the kit. All it's for is we put it on right down here and we clamp it into place. It holds our back slats in place while we mark and put the screws in. So all it is it just sits right there. And when we set our back slats on there, they just sit on there. You don't actually need it, it just makes life a lot easier. So what we're going to do now is we're going to line up all of our back slats and do a visual inspection on them. Our back slats are pre-drilled. The countersink should be forward. And we're going to drop them in place here. All right, again, you're going to want to make sure these are lined up visual. For this one, if you want to line it up just so it's barely touching the arm or not touching the arm on both sides here, and that is almost all the way over to touching the leg on both sides here. What is a preference? So you can line it up, make sure things look right. And again, the best judge of what looks right is your eyes. So if you just step back and look at it, I can see that I'd like this one to be fanned out a little bit more. So just kind of bump it out just a hair. But again, it's all personal preference. If you want them straight up and down, feel free, it's your chair. So we have them all right here. Now Stefan's going to come around back here. So I'm going to hold the front here, and Stefan's going to make marks so when we take these off, we know exactly where to line them up so they're not all on here at one time. So he's making a mark on the back slat and a mark on the upper rear cross piece, and he's going to do the exact same thing on the bottom of the back slat and the lower rear cross piece. And he's going to do that to all 5 back slats. And what that's going to enable us to do is when we take these off, we can line them exactly up without having to see where they are placed with all 5 of them there. All right, now we're going to put the actual screws in. If you notice, the holes are drilled in the exact location you need them to be. If by some odd reason that this got pushed up or down, you shouldn't see the holes from the back side. They should be covered up. You should be able to see them nice and neat. So we're going to take all these ones down here. And I like to glue mine in place. So I put glue where I see my hole come through here on the bottom. And I put glue right across the 2 holes on the top. Make sure not to cover your mark that you made before. We'll drop these right in place. Stefan is going to line those marks up for me. I'm going to put the screw in the bottom in first. We good? Mm-hmm. And we're going to line the top up. And if you have to, you can lift this up or push it down to make sure the holes are in the right spot, but they should be in the correct spot if you were assembling it correctly so far. We're going to put these 2 screws in place. And you're going to repeat this process for the other 4. Now that your back slats are all in, you can take off this bottom board and drop back into your rear seat slot. Make sure to line it up with the marks you made previous. And screw them into place. Now this is done, you have completed your chair. If you would like to sand or router any more edges, feel free. Again, it's your chair, but it is finished.